Welcome everyone. I have 12:02 on my clock, so I want to welcome everybody to this session of the Ohio River Discussion Series. I see that our numbers of attendees is still clicking up, so hopefully a few more will join us, but we'll get started. I want to welcome everybody to the Ohio River Discussion Series. We appreciate that you joined this discussion. The Ohio River Discussion Series is an opportunity for communities to share their knowledge and passion for the Ohio River. These webinars are an opportunity for everyone who has some passion in the Ohio River to come together in a community. And during this calendar year, we're hoping to build that community of people. And every attendee here today is part of that community. So we really do appreciate everybody who's bringing together all the different interests around the Ohio River. I want to give you a very brief background. The Ohio River Discussion Series was created in 2020 by the Ohio River Recreational Trail, and in 21 it was expanded with additional partners to provide additional content and additional support. So we have many partners for this series, and the partners are, of course, the Ohio River Recreational Trail, the Ohio River Basin Alliance, the Foundation for Ohio River Education, ORSANCO, and the National Park Service. Now, my name is Lisa Cochran, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for ORSANCO. And my role today is facilitator of our discussion. So I will move the discussion through the agenda by introducing the speakers, serving as a timekeeper, and facilitating the question and answer series. And our first item will be the routine housekeeping. So let me move to that housekeeping slide. Very good, of course. This is routine housekeeping. Mute your microphone and disable your camera unless you're actively speaking. We will use the chat for all questions and comments. We have a wonderful turnout, over 100 people, so we simply wouldn't be allowed to, it wouldn't be effective to open the channels for verbal communication. So please use the chat for all questions and comments. And please remember that the discussion will be recorded, so the slides and the recording will be available later. Now, we're using the GoToMeeting software, and maybe you're already familiar with this software, but the only one feature that I will point out is at the top is the feature to show what you can view. So you can view everyone, you can view active cameras, you can view the speaker, or you can hide everyone. Generally, the other features are very similar, but I just want to point that out. That should be most likely at the top of your screen. And now, at this time, if you're willing, if you could chat your name and organization in the chat feature as a way to introduce yourself to the whole group. As I said, we have over 100 people attending. I wish we could introduce everybody verbally, but chat will be more efficient. Totally optional, but if you're willing, chat your name and organization. All right, what we see next, hopefully, is the agenda. We have an excellent agenda. We have 4 speakers today, all coming together to discuss recreational safety on the Ohio River. And I will introduce each speaker, and each speaker will present, and then we will have a question and answer session at the end of all of the speakers. And at this time, we will make our first speaker presenter. So Adam, if you could make that available for Jim, I'd appreciate it. And while you're doing that, I'm going to read a very brief bio. Lieutenant Commander Jim Brendel is the U.S. Coast Guard Marine Safety Detachment Unit. His title is Supervisor. He works in Cincinnati, Ohio, overseeing operations for an area of responsibility that includes a 3-state area, including the Port of Cincinnati, with 250 river miles and a $3 billion regional economic impact per year. As the senior Coast Guard representative in a metro area with a population of 2 million people, He is responsible for port safety and security, passenger and towing vessel inspections, facility inspections, marine casualty investigations, waterways management, pollution response, and maritime enforcement. Lieutenant Commander Brendel's personal awards include the Coast Guard Commendation Award, Coast Guard Achievement Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, and several other personal unit awards. So we are very pleased to have you today. Jim, are you able to share your presentation with us?
Actually, it might be kicking me out here in a second. Security, all of a sudden security, it told me I have to restart every.
Well, don't worry, we anticipated this. Heather has a copy of all the presentations. Heather, would you be able to pull up that presentation and share your screen?
Absolutely.
And then you and Jim just work through. Jim, you'll just have to let Heather know next slide, next slide.
Thank you very much. And
our pleasure. This always happens. There's always, yeah, there are always challenges.
Everything was working fine. As one other thing, but I guess the more security instead of less is a good thing. So.
Excellent.
All right.
I see it now.
Gotcha. All right. Well, once again, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jim Brendel, and as previously stated, I'm the supervisor for Coast Guard Marine Safety Detachment here in Cincinnati. Been here for the last 2.5 years, and we were just talking prior to this as I'm getting ready to transfer out this summer. As is always the song and dance with being in the Coast Guard is we come and then we leave. So with that being said, given the opportunity to talk about the Coast Guard and recreational boating safety, I wanted to take a minute and just kind of talk about who we are as an organization, because one of the first questions I usually get here is, why is the Coast Guard on the Ohio River? So figured spend a few minutes talking about that and then go over some safety pointers for recreational boating safety. Next slide, please. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Clear. All right, Heather, can you go to the next slide? All right. So the Coast Guard we are one of 6 armed forces of the United States. We're kind of a conglomeration of different organizations that were put together over time and form what is the current U.S. Coast Guard. We like to say that we are the oldest continuous seagoing service in the nation, because the Navy disbanded after the Revolutionary War and wasn't reestablished until after the creation of the Revenue Cutter Service back in 1790. So we're the longest continuous seagoing service. But with that, you can see we're made up of what was the U.S. Lighthouse Service. So lighthouses are aids to navigation. That's still one of our main missions. Revenue Cutter Service, Steamboat Inspection Service, and the Life-Saving Service. And so all those units were different organizations were put together at one point in time. And in 1915, we founded what is currently called the U.S. Coast Guard, and we fell under the Treasury Department originally. In 1967, we transferred to Department of Transportation. And then after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, we were transferred to Department of Homeland Security, which is where we still reside. Next slide, please. All right, so we have 11 statutory responsibilities. And these are responsibilities that Congress has mandated that the Coast Guard, you shall do these things. And with them, it's ports, waterways, and coastal security, drug interdiction, aids to navigation, search and rescue, living marine resources, marine safety. That's one of the biggest things that we do here in Cincinnati is marine safety. Thus, the name of my unit is actually Marine Safety Detachment. Defense readiness, migrant interdiction. Not a lot of migrant interdiction here in Cincinnati. I've heard a lot of arguments about trying to keep Ohioans on one side and Kentuckians on the other side, but we leave that to the states to fight out. Marine environmental protection, ice operations, usually not so much ice operations here, although recently, maybe, and other law enforcement. And I'll kind of talk about a couple of these different ones that we focus on while here in Cincinnati. Next slide, please. All right, so the U.S. Marine Transportation System. This is another thing. Under all of those statutory requirements, we're responsible for maintaining and keeping open the U.S. Marine Transportation System. So it's big. It consists of 95,000 miles of shoreline, an additional 3.5 million square miles of the exclusive economic zone is basically a 200-mile line out from the shorelines around all of our territories. We also are responsible for maintaining 25,000 miles of navigable channels and rivers, 50,000 federal aids to navigation, buoys, beacons, and ranges, 20,000 bridges that are crossing waterways, 23 million jobs created by the U.S. Marine Transportation System, $4.6 trillion of economic activity. So a lot of what we do is especially here in Cincinnati on the Ohio River, when people ask, what is my job? My job in here is to make sure that that river stays open for commerce. At the end of the day, that's my main focus, because that means a lot of tax dollars going up and down the rivers, while also doing these other missions, protecting everybody else's interests. And by the way, we do this with roughly the same size. We cover all of this land or water with the same amount of people as the New York City Police Department. So just want to put that out there. That's how big the Coast Guard is. We used to say we were the smallest branch of all the services, but now Space Force is smaller than we are, and they probably have 3 times as big a budget. But I guess that's what happens when you go to space. Next slide, please. All right, so functionally we're broken down, and people have probably heard Sector Ohio Valley. We're broken down into areas, districts, and sectors. So area, we work for Coast Guard Atlantic area, home based in Portsmouth, Virginia. And then further broken down is Coast Guard District 8, which is home based in New Orleans, Louisiana. And then Marine Safety Detachment Cincinnati works for Sector Ohio Valley, which is based in Louisville, Kentucky. So our sector commander is Captain Amy Beach. She's stationed down in Sector Ohio Valley. If any of you have ever met her down in Louisville, she's a fantastic boss. Very fortunate to work for. And you can kind of see on that picture is what the area that we're responsible for inside of Sector Ohio Valley. Sector Ohio Valley is essentially responsible for all the watershed for the Ohio River that dumps into the Mississippi. So if you look at it, starting at the northeast, if you have Marine Safety Unit Pittsburgh, so the confluence there, Allegheny, Monongahela, turn into the Ohio River, goes through Marine Safety Unit West Virginia's area of responsibility, some additional rivers that flow into it, through our little quaint neck of the woods here in Cincinnati, down into Louisville, or Sector Ohio Valley proper's area of responsibility, and then downstream to Marine Safety Unit Paducah. And also to the further south, you have Marine Safety Detachment Nashville, which has the Tennessee and the Cumberland rivers, which will also dump into the Ohio and then further into the Mississippi. And then we're responsible for part of the Tennessee Tombigbee waterway. So I just wanted to share that with you. That is the area that we are responsible. That's a lot of river, a lot of space. So we're very busy with very minimal manning. The sector commander, by law, has multiple responsibilities. And in the case of Captain Beach, she wears multiple hats, so as we like to say. So she is the captain of the port. She is also the Federal Maritime Security Coordinator. She is the officer in charge of marine inspections. She is the Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator, and she is also the Maritime Federal On-Scene Coordinator here for that whole area. Next slide. All right. So that, like I said, I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of explain who we are and what we're doing here and some of our authorities. With our interactions with recreational boater, I'll be honest, the majority of what we do here is with commercial, is really the big part. But we also do have an impact with recreational boaters. What you probably see us more than anything would be for marine events. And in this case, we have regularly reoccurring events such as Paddle Fest, River Fest, Ohio River Swim, where you have a group of people want to do something safely on the river, knowing that there's hazards. So put in for a marine event permit, and the Coast Guard can establish what's listed below is either safety zone, more than likely a safety zone, or a security zone. So safety zone, we use it's protecting the people, keeping them outside of it. Security zone, we will establish if there's like a high visibility, high security contact, and we're going to protect what's inside the security zone. So in this case, we had a security zone. A good example, or the only example I really have of it since I've been here, is we had a presidential visit and we established a security zone because the president and the vice president were both on the waterfront. So we were protecting the asset inside of that area. You also see us as with regularly scheduled law enforcement or safety patrols. The Coast Guard has broad latitude and authority under 14 U.S. Code 522, which essentially gives the Coast Guard responsibility and the authority to board any vessel inside U.S. waters to ensure that in compliance with all applicable rules, laws, and regulations. We do have two 29-foot boats here in Cincinnati. They will be leaving this summer, and but they're not leaving the area. They're just being redistributed up to Huntington and down to Louisville. They will still be here for events and then randomly, but they will not be a regular presence. We also do interagency operations. We work closely with our port partners because, once again, there's a lot of river to cover and not a lot of us. So we work with Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, our state, local representatives on most of these events. Cincinnati Fire, Covington Fire, Newport Police, Newport Fire. They'll all be involved in safety on the water. We also leverage our volunteer group, Coast Guard Auxiliary. They will conduct courtesy safety inspections for you either at your dock. They do a lot of outreach with you. A fantastic group of people. Nadina, I will let Nadina talk more towards the auxiliary, but I can't speak highly enough about the auxiliary and what they do for us as a force multiplier. Next slide, please. All right, so recreational boating safety. So just a couple of safety points and reminders I wanted to get out to everybody. The Ohio River really is, to me, is pretty unique. Being a pooled river, it's, someday you go out there and it's more like being on a lake. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, so we had that big muddy Mississippi, and nobody went out on that thing. But everybody likes to boat here on the Ohio River, and I understand it completely. It's beautiful. Reminder, it is a major commercial highway. So a typical 15 barge tow is a quarter of a mile long. It takes a long time. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of distance. It's hard for towboat captains to see you. It's hard for them to stop. Plus, we can also get into some of the rules below. They're operating a navigable channel. So by and large, they have the right of way. So just keep that in mind. Narrow channel rules actually specify that, stay as far to the side as you can to let traffic pass. But that kind of gets me to the navigation rules, also known as the rules of the road. They're codified in 33 Code of Federal Regulation, Part 83 through 90, the inland rules. And these are applicable to all vessels on a U.S. inland waters. And so just a couple notes for that is you're required to have a copy of it on board. Self-propelled vessels, more 12 meters or greater, so 39.4 feet or longer, and you're required to have a copy on board. But it's a good understanding, good principle to understand what the rules of the road are, because you are required to follow the rules regardless of whether you know them or don't know them. So it's probably better to know them. A couple of the big ones that I always push, these are kind of the, if you follow these things closely, you should be okay regardless of circumstances. Rule number 5 requires you to maintain a proper lookout. So that means that when you're driving your boat, you have to be able to pay attention to what is in front of you. At the end of the day, if something goes wrong, the law requires you to do that. It also requires you by Rule 6 is to maintain a safe speed appropriate for the conditions. So it's kind of vague as to what that means. A safe speed is relative. So just remember that when operating. Rule 8, actions to avoid collision. Big thing for me, the takeaway from that is that regardless of what the rule says as far as the situation, whether it's a crossing situation or whatever, you are obligated to take effective action to avoid collision. Every party, not just one person. So if you got the right of way and something's you still are required to take some sort of action to avoid that collision. Rule 19, conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. This one, a lot of people don't pay attention to this one too much. So you're out, your lights don't work, rain comes in, how are you going to notify people that you are there? How are you going to let people know? Nighttime. Nighttime is a condition of restricted visibility. So it's dark. So make sure everything works for you there. Next slide, please. I'm getting close to my 15 minutes. I could talk all day about the Coast Guard. So
Jim, you read my mind. I was going to ask you if you would be able to wrap up in the next minute or two.
Thank you. Yep. All right. Rule 9, narrow channel. Big thing takeaway here. Power-driven vessel operating a narrow channel fairway on the western rivers, which is what we're on, proceeding downbound with following current, has the right of way over an upbound vessel. So if you're a power-driven vessel and you're upbound on the river, you lose to the downbound vessel. All right. Remember, no wake in downtown Cincinnati, bridge to bridge at nighttime. Next slide. And that's a state of Ohio rule, not ours. All right. So don't drink and drive. Plain and simple. Wear life jackets. All right. Make sure you have appropriate size life jackets for everybody on board. File a float plan. Nadina will talk about float plans. Just let somebody know where you're going to be and when you're going to be back. Know what you're doing on the water before you start. Don't go out with a rookie. Make sure everything on your vessel works before you get into the water. All right, have a means of communication. So cell phone, radio with a backup. Next slide. All right, all paperwork, everything else you need, water, sunscreen, spare glasses if you need it, know where you're operating, know where you can get gas, and make sure you can pay for it. And have a means of communication. We already talked about that briefly. If you ever are in distress, channel 16 if you're on Marine Band, or I have a number listed for Coast Guard Ohio, Sector Ohio Command Center. Call them. There's manned 24/7. If you are in trouble, call. And if all else fails, call 911. Next slide. Most importantly, have fun. That's what we're all here for, right? So we want you to have fun, but we just want you to do it safely. So next slide. And there's some information, contact information, if you want to get a hold of us, that website on the bottom has a lot of great information. I think it's linked to the Recreational Trails website, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry. If not, we probably need to make that happen. So, all right. Well, thank you. I apologize. I ran a minute and a half over. So
we can handle it. Thank you so much. That was good information. And what you're providing on the screen right now is exceptional information as well. You are an excellent contact to have, and we appreciate your knowledge and the fact that you'll be able to answer questions after all of the speakers. So we'll stick around for a little bit after that. So,
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next speaker. And while I'm introducing that speaker, Nadina will have you be able to share your screen. So give me just a moment to read this. Nadina Leisner is the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary Paddlecraft Coordinator for the 8th District Eastern Rivers. And Nadina has served as Paddlecraft Safety Liaison for the Coast Guard for 3 years, and currently the District Staff Officer for the 8 Eastern Rivers region for the Auxiliary Paddlecraft Safety Initiative. She also serves as the PaddleFest Safety Director and is an L2 touring kayak instructor with the American Canoe Association. So we are pleased to have Nadina speak. Nadina, are you able to share your screen with us?
All right. There we go. Get the screen
Excellent.
up. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Slideshow from beginning. So a little bit about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I was sitting in a paddle sports safety class one April, approximately 5 years ago. I was recruited by Larry Stoltz during that course through a sidebar presentation on the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Larry made it sound so much like fun that it wasn't very long before they managed to progress me up until I became a coxswain. However, my boat is the cardboard boat sitting on the ground there. So we're a great organization and we have a lot of fun. Here's what I learned as I became a member. The Coast Guard Auxiliary was established by Congress in 1939 under Title 1423 of the U.S. Code to supplement the United States Coast Guard during a time of great need for protection and boating safety. Over time, we evolved and now, along with the Coast Guard, are housed under Homeland Security. Our mission is to promote and improve recreational boating safety, to provide trained crews and facilities to augment the Coast Guard and enhance safety and security of our ports, waterways, and coastal regions, and to support the Coast Guard operational, administration, and logistical requirements. Who we are? We're roughly 35 to 40,000 civilian volunteers who give their time to promote recreational boating safety and supplement the U.S. Coast Guard in daily activities. If you keep in mind that the United States Coast Guard is only around 42,000 members, we pretty much multiply their force by double in order to help them protect all of those waterways that Commander Brindle showed us. We come from all walks of life. We could be teachers, store clerks, doctors, students, retired military, and so on. There's a job for everyone in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, from cooking on a Coast Guard facility to working as an office support personnel. We provide our own personal boats, power boats, aircraft, and kayaks as Coast Guard Auxiliary facilities in order to work our missions. We are everyday people doing volunteer work on land, water, and in the air to promote safety and save lives. What we are not, and this was brought to my attention, a lot of people do not know this when they see us because we wear the same uniform as the Coast Guard Auxiliary, or the Coast Guard itself, I'm sorry. As the Coast Guard Auxiliary, we are not law enforcement. We cannot write you a ticket or enforce the law. We cannot board your vessel without your permission. We can only make suggestions and recommendations. We're not allowed to do search or seizures. We're not allowed to carry weapons, and we are not military. We do not operate without orders authorizing our missions from the Coast Guard. So when you meet us, we are basically civilians in a uniform helping to promote boating safety, hoping that we can keep you from running into law enforcement and getting a citation. What we do on a national level, we do safety and security patrols, search and rescue missions, mass casualty or disaster. I can't see my screen. Mass casualty or disaster response, pollution response, and pollution patrols, homeland security assistance. We provide platforms for boarding parties from other military services and the United States Coast Guard. We're recreational boating safety education promoters. We provide commercial fishing and vessel exams. We provide personal watercraft vessel exams, and we promote paddlecraft safety outreach for all. Finally, we recruit for all services in the Coast Guard and Coast Guard Auxiliary. So how does this apply to the Ohio River on and near it? And I've just kind of included some fun pictures there. Again, I can't see my slide. All right, work with the United States Coast Guard to do patrols. While we're out patrolling, we might be checking the aids to navigation along the river to see if the lights on the bridges are working correctly and the buoys are where they're supposed to be. We're looking for suspicious activity. Here in Ohio, we have a lot of chemical and fuel depots along the river, so we want to make sure that there's not activity going on around those. We report that stuff so that intervention or repairs can be made. We work with local law enforcement during high volume needs. We provide extra boats and people on the river for events like Paddle Fest, fireworks, river swims, river closures, and festivals. As Lieutenant Brindle said, we're losing a couple of boats and they'll come back for events, but there's still not enough boats to close the river, so we put extra boats on the river to do that. We approach other boaters and suggest safe boating practices. If we see someone speeding, we might flag them down and say, hey, you're in an area where it's unsafe to go that fast, or maybe they're anchored in the channel and therefore blocking barge traffic coming through. We want them out of it. We'll suggest they anchor a little closer to shore. And we watch for life jacket use and suggest use of life jackets. A lot of this we do because we're not law enforcement. As we're suggesting it, it might keep them from getting a citation when the law enforcement vessel comes along. So we want them to see us as friends and not foes. We do search and rescue. We coordinate with the Coast Guard and local law enforcement aid and search and rescue of those in need on the water. Typically here in the Cincinnati area, we're only there if we're requested. I don't know about the other areas along the Ohio River, but I can imagine it's about the same. We'll respond to Mayday calls. If we're out on the river patrolling and one comes in, provide assistance as we can. We also provide, if we come across a broken down or out of field vessel, we will provide courtesy tows to the next closest marina. It might not be the one people want to go to, but it will get them off the water where they can get help. We respond to mass casualties and disasters. So like there in Cincinnati with flooding, we might be called in to help with that. We could be called in to help with things like the Branson duck boat. And I included the tornado in this because we have actually had flotillas who organized and helped disaster relief in tornado-stricken areas. Last but not least is also the hurricane season. We'll provide support for that. During these disasters, we will provide extra manpower in the offices in order to take a 1 or 2 person office up to more people who are needed to deploy hundreds, if not thousands, of actual Coast Guard and auxiliaries into an area to support. We provide pollution response patrols. So while we're out patrolling, we'll be watching for and reporting pollution as we see it. We might, under authorized order, act as a safety boat alongside a cleanup crew, such as Clean Harbors in Cincinnati, while they're cleaning up an oil spill on the water. And while we're out doing vessel exams and boater education courses, we are promoting clean water practices. Sorry about that, my phone buzzed. We do vessel exams, which are basically inspections of a vessel to see that they have everything needed to operate in the state, federal, and local waterways as required. Some of us take special training to do commercial vessels. We don't see too many fishing commercial vessels here on the Ohio River, but we do see the duck boats, the paddle wheelers, and the barges, along with floating party barges and restaurants. One of the big things we do here on the Ohio River is we do personal watercraft vessel exams, which is an inspection of personally owned powerboats and paddlecraft. We look for all of the equipment again needed, and we provide tips on safe boating practices, such as if you're in a kayak, don't try to outrun a barge by crossing the river in front of it. We advise boat owners of who has the right of way or what they need to carry in their local waterways if they're from out of the area. This is a big benefit to the personal owners of watercraft because we offer this exam for free. We don't issue citations. We offer a pass or fail only, and frequently, if they can fix the failing item immediately, such as a missing flag by buying it at the marina for distress, then we can turn around and make that fail a pass. This becomes a huge benefit to the owners because once we've checked their vessel and placed a sticker on it, they're advertising to law enforcement and the United States Coast Guard that they've been inspected and their vessel meets requirements. If they happen to be stopped, then they would have everything they need on board to pass that on the spot inspection, thus avoiding a citation. They also receive during this exam a few safe boating tips along with local regulations if they're from out of the area. This service might also get them a huge discount on their insurance. All of this is free and citation free. After 9/11, many of the auxiliary vessels and auxiliaries help patrol harbors and ports for added security, acting as extra eyes and ears. The Ohio River is a federal river and a busy shipping center, Therefore, it continues to need extra eyes and ears for safety. And if you look at how many Coast Guard, actual Coast Guard we have along the Ohio River versus the ports and coastlines, you will see that we spend a lot of time helping out here because they're stretched pretty thin. And I know working with the guys down at the local MDS has been really awesome. Can't say enough about how good they are. We also may use our vessels for active duty Coast Guard who need to have a boarding platform. This automatically turns the auxiliary boat into a Coast Guard vessel at the time, giving it more authority, but that only belongs to the active duty Coast Guard that's on it. And there's some technical lingo that I won't get into there. I don't understand it all myself. We perform recreational boating safety outreach, and this is where we really multiply the force of the Coast Guard. They do not have enough manpower to get out and do this. We attend boat shows and interact with the public. We participate in parades, shake hands with the public. We participate in the broom balls at Cincinnati during Boat Week. We do cardboard boat races, paddle fest, the river, all the river stuff like that. We have booths at. We really enjoy interacting with the public, and we really enjoy handing out if lost, found stickers, paddle tip safety stickers, and stickers for marine sewer and stuff like that for the power boats.
Adina, I'm going to interrupt for just a moment. Forgive me, this is Lisa. Would you be able to wrap up in the next minute or two?
Yeah, actually, I've only got a couple slides left.
Oh, perfect. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Near and dear to my heart is a newer initiative, which is a growing program promoting paddlecraft safety as the deaths rise in paddlecraft. The Coast Guard Auxiliary and Coast Guard noted that with the increased education for power boaters, deaths were going down. So they saw that this might also work for paddlecraft and started this initiative. So here in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, we have a all paddle powered detachment. We paddle our little kayaks, which we are not authorized to be on the river yet, but we're hoping this summer. We offer courses for safe paddling on land in conjunction with the American Canoe and Kayak Association. And all of these shots were taken on the Ohio River at different areas on the Ohio River. We also recruit for all services in the United States Coast Guard. The end.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I apologize. I jumped the gun. I should have waited all of 1 minute. Thank you very much, Nadina. I personally learned some differentiations between the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary, so I appreciate that information. I enjoyed that. Thank you. And of course, I'm sure there are some people who have some questions for you, but we'll handle all the questions at the end. So thank you very much. And now behind the scenes, we're going to make Lisa Freeman, our next presenter, able to share her screen. And while we're doing that, I'm going to read a brief bio of Lisa. Lisa Freeman is a natural resource specialist with the Army Corps of Engineers. Lisa Freeman has spent 25 years, has 25 years of experience as a natural resource specialist with the Corps. She began her career with the Fort Worth District at Lake Whitney and worked several years at Taylorsville Lake in Kentucky. She is currently serving as the River Ranger for the 9 locks and dams on the Ohio and Green Rivers. In this role, she assists the locks and dams with service contracts, real estate issues, recreation, environmental stewardship, along with a whole host of other issues. Lisa, are you able to share your screen with us? It appears you're muted, Lisa.
There we go. Sorry.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, I'm able to share my screen. I am starting. There we go. Okay, as Lisa said, I work for the Corps of Engineers. The Corps has many missions, which include reducing flood risk through lake and levee projects, navigation on the country's waterways, creating infrastructure for the Army, recreation. The Corps is the largest federal provider of outdoor recreation, environmental stewardship, assisting in disaster relief, and issuing Section 404, Section 10 permits through the Regulatory Division. and specific to this talk, the Corps of Engineers constructed and operates locks and dams along the Ohio River. There are 3 specific locks and dams within the boundaries of the Ohio River Recreation Trail. The furthest upstream, Captain Anthony Meldahl Locks and Dam, is in the Huntington District of the Corps of Engineers, and then the Markland and McAlpin Locks and Dams are in the Louisville District. The locks are staffed 24/7 by lock operators, maintenance staff, and administrators. And so I'm working with the 9 locks and dams in the Ohio and Green River. My official title is Natural Resource Specialist, but I'm more commonly known as the River Ranger. I have wide-ranging responsibilities: recreation, visitor assistance, natural resource management, sign programs. Along with Indina, I'm not true law enforcement. I'm what's called a regulatory enforcement. So I can write citations, but I don't carry a weapon, don't have arrest authority. So in getting towards safety on the Ohio River, the Ohio River navigation charts contain a wealth of information on safety, such as danger and restricted zones around the locks and dams. Aids to navigation show you where the signs and buoys are. River mileage. It's just a good general map to aid you on your journey on the Ohio, even if you just intend to be on the river for a short stretch of it. So here we've got the Meldahl Locks and Dam navigation chart. You can see the restricted areas marked around the locks and dam. There's arrival points downstream and upstream. So once you're within the arrival points along the northern shoreline, you're within the approach zone to the lock. It shows the sailing line, which is the main area for the barges to travel. So again, that's good knowledge for a smaller craft so that you can keep off to the sides. But the white area is the main channel area that's deep enough for the commercial tows to go. The light blue areas would be the more shallow areas. So just another example, here's Markland Locks and Dam navigation chart. Here you can see a danger area as well as the restricted area. A little further in talk, I'll talk a little more about those 2 zones. They also have other information such as marinas, public access points. So lots of information on the navigation charts. Each Corps of Engineer district is responsible for the navigation charts for the section of the Ohio River within their operational boundary. So you would need to go to 2 different web pages, for example, to get the charts covering the Ohio River Recreation Trail area. Electronic copies can be downloaded for free from the district websites. Just go to the websites I've got listed here. You can just go to the main website and then type in the search box Ohio River navigation charts. And that'll get you right to it. Along with the charts, there are also directions on the website for going to the U.S. Government Printing Office website or call to purchase paper copies if you want those. One thing I always really emphasize when I'm talking about water safety to groups is to really promote wearing your life jacket. It's not just enough to have it, which is a legal requirement, but you also need to wear it to make it effective. So here are examples of some of the safety signage you would see around the locks and dams. The 2 main zones you need to be aware of are the danger and the restricted zone. So the danger is further away from the dam. Signage just to let you know that you are approaching a dam. And then the restricted areas where all boats need to keep out for safety reasons. The Corps of Engineers has a national sign program, so all our signs are standardized so that you should see the same look and type of sign to any Corps project you would go to. So often you'll see the red and white danger and restricted signs, noting you to those locations. Other signs you might see are more symbol-like. And so the danger symbol is an orange diamond in a square. Then a restricted zone includes a cross within the diamond. Here you see the restricted area on a buoy. So they've used that in addition to some of the signage. So you may see it on the buoys. They may also be in what they call day marks, which are signs along the sides or on the lock walls that are unlighted. So they're day marks. You need to know the symbol. Often there'll be the language like in the buoy, keep out, but you may just see the symbol without any wordage. So here's an example of the downstream side of the Markland Tainer Gates. You can see on the bridge piers the red and white restricted sign. So in this case, they're saying restricted, keep back 150 feet. So that's the minimum amount to keep back from the downstream side of a dam. When the water comes through the Tainer Gates, it can create reverse currents, sometimes also called backlash, that if you get too close, and either motorboat or paddle boat can draw you into this area and either capsize your boat or cause it to crash into the side of the dam. So you definitely want to stay a good ways back. Anything could happen, say your motor could fail, and that way you don't have any choice but to end up in the dam. Or in a paddle craft, you may not be able to paddle hard enough to get away from that area. So keeping out of that area is real important. Also, you need to stay away from the upper pool, the upper side of the gates. In this case, if they're releasing lots of water, there could be undertows that you can't see that, again, if you get too close, would draw your boat into and then over the dam into that rolling water on the low stream side. Usually the restricted zone on the upper end of a dam is a lot further back than the restricted area below dams, but both sides can be very dangerous. Just an example, here on the Green River is an example of a fixed crest dam, and so there are no gates here. The water just flows over as it is high enough. So these dams are a lot harder to see, and so you really need to be aware, watching out for signage as you would at any dam, gates or no, and just be aware of your location on the river. Again, using the navigation charts, helping you know that you are approaching a dam. Another area to be really careful about around dams is the water intake and outflow areas. The lock chambers are filled and water's let out all through gravity feed. So when they need to fill the lock chamber, they take water from the upper pool, they open the valves, and it flows into the chamber. Then when they need to lower the water to get to the lower pool, the water is again released through another valve into the lower pool. When this occurs, it can create large turbulence and a boil in the water, which would easily capsize a small craft. So this is a small portion of the nav chart for McAlpin showing the restricted area here around where the outflow valves are. So just to give you an idea of how much water that is, on the right here is a picture of the newest lock chamber at McAlpin when it's still under construction. These channels here are the culverts for filling and letting out the water. And this on the left is one of the culvert valves. This is from Markland when they were installing new culvert valves. So this you can see from the size of the valve and the people below it in relation how much water. There's in the 1,200-foot chambers, there's 1 million gallons of water per foot of water. So at McAlpin has the tallest lift or difference between the upper and lower pools, 37 feet. So that means there's 37 million gallons of water in there that when the lock is completely full. So another thing to be very important, Jim was talking about keeping a lookout. You always need to keep clear of other vessels. A full-size tow with 15 barges pretty much fills up a standard lock chamber. So it's 1,200 feet long by about 110 feet wide. So such a large vessel will displace a lot of water. So it can its own undertows and suction around the vessel. So if you get too close to one of these large vessels in a small vessel, such as a small motor vehicle or paddle boat, you can be sucked up and under the barge. Also, these barges create quite a bit of prop wash weight behind them, which again could capsize a boat. So make sure you stay clear. You have a lot more maneuverability than those vessels do. So it's your responsibility to keep out of their way. They take a long time to stop or turn, and so they cannot avoid you. Sometimes they can be deceptively quiet as well. So not only do you need to keep a lookout ahead, you need to keep watch behind you if you're in a small, slow paddlecraft, say, to make sure that the barge is not coming up behind you. Again, you can look at the nav chart, see the sail lines, and make sure you're staying to the sides so that you're kind of out of their way.
So this is Lisa. Forgive the interruption. Are you able to wrap up in a minute or two?
I'll be quick.
Thank you.
Okay, so just a real brief, locking through. Here's a couple pictures. This is the Mayor's Paddle Fest in the fall. So they have a large canoe group on the river. They head downstream through the lock. On the other side, several fishing boats going through. Again, they are pulling off to the side. Each boat needs to be tied up. If there's not enough room, then the lock master will probably ask them to tie up next to each other. Or here, the canoers are all hanging on to the canoes next to them. The lock operators probably told them to hang on. When they let the water in or out, that can create currents, rock the boats back and forth. So they need to be securely tied off. 4 primary steps in the lockage process: contacting the dam to request lockage, entering the lock chamber, mooring off, exiting the lock chamber. There are 3 ways to request lockage. You can call through the VHF radio frequency, usually using channel 13. Channel 16 is the emergency channel. So 13 is more the hailing channel. You can use a cell phone. Lock phone numbers can be found in nav charts, web pages. So you can just call, request lockage. The third option, if you don't have either of these, there are pull chains located at the end of the lock walls that you can go up, physically pull, and that alerts the lock operator that you're there. If you're using the radio or calling, it's always good to stay back, stay at the approach points in case a vessel, large vessel, is already in the lock chamber that will need to exit before you enter. So here's a couple of the signals that you would use at the locks. Traffic lights essentially will show you when it's safe to enter. Air horn signals also be used, and they will tell you which lock you should enter by and leave, and when you're ready to leave. Lastly, here's a quick picture of the floating mooring bits. You always need to make sure to tie off to a floating bit instead of a stationary. Here's some stationary ones, but they are not going to move. So the floating mooring bits will go up and down with you do, so that you don't end up under or hanging out of the water. And I guess that is all I have.
Thank you. Lisa, I have to tell you, those navigational charts are like gold in the ORSANCO office. I one time suggested that we recycled an old, outdated one, and everybody said absolutely not. So they are a wealth of information. Thank you very much. As I said before, I'm sure people have a few questions for you, Lisa, but we'll move on to the next speaker, and then we'll have our questions at the end. While I'm reading Jerry's bio, we'll make him the presenter. Jerry Schulte is an Ohio River Paddle Fest Executive Committee member and an Ohio River Recreational Trail Executive member. Jerry has spent his career doing what many people only dream of, working with Lisa and Heather. No, sorry. I apologize,
Absolutely.
everybody. I know
Absolutely.
Jerry, I'm sorry. Forgive me, everybody. No,
It's all
truly, Jerry. Jerry's had an exceptional career. He has been working outdoors. He has worked as a naturalist, biologist, and environmental scientist. Jerry's focus over the past 35 years has been conducting environmental research on the Ohio River from Pittsburgh to Cairo. Having spent literally thousands of hours on the Ohio River and its tributaries, both working and recreating, the river has repeatedly demonstrated the need for recreationalists to understand this incredible resource and the safety protocols that are needed to undertake to safely enjoy this beautiful resource. It's a pleasure to see you again, Jerry. Are you able to share your screen with us?
I believe I have it up there. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Do I have my 15 minutes, or are you going to need to truncate me?
Well, certainly we'll go over and we'll do our best. So I'd aim for 12 minutes or so, and then we'll have a few minutes of questions. All
righty, we'll do the best we can. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much to our previous speakers. They've done an absolutely marvelous job and fortunately in setting me up to talk about safety information on the Ohio River. As Lisa said, I've spent a lifetime working on the Ohio River, and it never ceases to amaze me, the beauty, the majesty, and just the phenomenal opportunity we have here to recreate on this resource. I'm part of the Ohio River Recreational Trail Group. We have the three co-chairs for the group on the call here today, David Wicks, Brewster Rhodes, and Jack Sutton. And I've been working very closely with them on creating the safety protocols for the Ohio River Recreation Trail. Now, just to back up for a second, the Ohio River Recreation Trail is a water and land trail starting in Portsmouth, Ohio, and ending down in West Point, Kentucky. 274 miles right now on the Ohio River. Hopefully, I think our vision is to do all 981 miles on the Ohio River, but we're chewing off this 274 mile section first to see how everything goes. And right now, it's just absolutely going spectacularly in all the support we're getting from the National Park Service, from the communities up and down the river, and from motorists and boaters as well. So what I want to talk about, and I'll be talking very quickly to get all this in, is the safety information that's contained both on the Ohio Recreation Trail website. You can see the URL at the top of the page. And then also talk about something that is so incredibly unique for us, the digital guide to the Ohio River. So let's get started on this. I'm going to roll through it quickly. I apologize, and hopefully Lisa will have all of the presentations available at the conclusion of the presentation here today. So we've got 6 different tips I want to go over real quick. First thing you always want to do is check weather conditions, and we provide a tab here that'll take you right to the weather channel. This is from yesterday, since I made static presentations here, so this is yesterday. And yeah, we had pretty good weather last night. Everybody knows how to run the weather channel site. Let's go on to the river stage information. This is from the National Weather Service, the Ohio River Forecast Center in Wilmington, Ohio. If you scroll down on the left-hand side here, I've clicked off the locations on the Ohio River that are along that 274-mile stretch of the trail. I've also come up here, I've clicked on the stage and forecast, and then you come down to the bottom, hit Make My River page, and you get the stage information here. This is the one for Cincinnati. At the midline is what's going on right now. To the left here is what happened yesterday and days before, and the forecast here showing that the river is going to go up about a foot, up to 30.2 feet by Friday here of this week. At least that was a prediction yesterday. You can also benefit a lot from looking at the velocity of the river. Here, it's another product from the National Weather Service up there at the Forecast Center. And this is the flow and velocity forecast. So you start on the 15th here, which was yesterday, and it gives you 3 days forecast. You have multiple places that you can view the information from. You have Cincinnati right here showing the multiple days of flow and velocity. Flow being the volume of water, velocity actually being the speed. Here are the days. The flow is here, velocity is here. And at Cincinnati, if you notice, the flow and volume of water was 95,000 cubic feet per second on yesterday at 1.8 miles per hour. If we advance over here to Thursday, the 18th, we're going to see an increase in the flow of 1.06 106,000 cubic feet per second, and 2 miles an hour. And that is corroborated by the stage graph, going back to that. Where as you can see, the water is going to increase in stage. And this is, they all work together. The flow, the volume of water, as it increases, the velocity of the water increases, and the stage increases. So all three of these pieces of data can help you identify what the conditions are on the river before you go, and when you plan your trip, what you could potentially run into. So I heartily suggest that you get used to going to these websites and finding this information and learning how to use it. ODNR, the check safety equipment list. ODNR has a tremendous list here that identifies at the top here power boats, sailboats, and manually propelled craft. All of your materials you need over here. What I want to point out here is that there are 3 lines on this table where there are black dots all the way across. This first one is naturally life jackets, PFDs. Everybody has to have a PFD. The second one is down here on sound signaling devices, and everybody that's on the Ohio River has to have a horn or whistle or a signaling device. That's regardless of whether you're a power boater or a manual propelled craft, a canoe or kayak. Similarly, on the bottom here, you have anchor light. Everybody that's going to anchor on the Ohio River has to have a white anchor light. And you can, in fact, get these for canoes and kayaks. LEDs are just tremendous things to use, and you can comply with the law in that respect. Continuing on, let's talk about this Coast Guard float plan. This is probably one of the things that is most important that most people do not do. Filling out a float plan prior to leaving on an excursion on a river system, particularly on the Ohio. You get your identification information, communication, visual distress signals, additional gear. You have your itinerary listed, who you are, who your contacts are, when you're leaving, when you're planning on arriving, and such that if you don't make it back, this is a roadmap as to where you were and where people can begin looking for you along the way. So this is an incredibly important piece of safety equipment. You also have their boating emergency guide, which will help you identify an emergency situation and what to do in that. You should also make a list of all the appropriate emergency contacts. As always, try 911 first. You have good cell coverage on the Ohio River, and 911 will get you in touch with somebody. It might not be the right person, but they will forward you on to somebody else. Also, you have the telephone numbers here for the locks and dams that can provide assistance. But as the Coast Guard contacts here pointed out, you have Sector Ohio Valley, which will give you somebody in Louisville, but don't worry about that, because if you're in Cincinnati, they're going to turn you back over to Lieutenant Brendel, and he's going to get in touch with the people that can help you. So this is very important to have these contacts available before you go out on the water. And last but not least, the optional equipment, all the additional things you may need to have when you're out on the water. I'm going to skip those and go to this. If you go on the safety tab on the Ohio River Trail website, there's a video that identifies all of these things I'm talking about today, as well as the complete Ohio River Safety Guide that you can download and use. What I'd like to roll on to now is the Ohio River Digital Guide. This is something that's absolutely fantastic. You will not find its equal anywhere on another river system in the United States anyway. One of the things you can do first off down here is explore the guide. We do have a video again that shows you how to operate the guide and all of the different attributes to it. Today, though, I'm going to focus on the safety components that are contained in the guide that you can use while you're on the water. Now, one of the unique things about the guide, it is not an app. It is an interactive website because it's going to track you. It's going to show where you are on the river at all times. So you know exactly where you are, and you can tell people where you are if you have an emergency situation. So here we go, looking at the different layers that are available. I got to get this GoToMeeting thing out of here. You can see the river access points. I've turned those on. Those are literally the boat ramps up and down the river. And we have this data for all 274 miles on the river. So it's not just this small segment of Cincinnati I'm showing you. We have this for the whole area from Pittsburgh all the way down to West Point, Kentucky. If you see over here the layers that we have available, we have the river access points. We have points of interest, campgrounds, restaurants, lodging, stores, marinas, etc. I'm just going to look at the safety ones, however. So this is the first, the river access points. If I click on this river access point right here, it brings up a photograph of that access point from the river view. So you know that you're at the right place if you show up at this location. It gives you the river mile, what the amenities are at this site, so you have every opportunity to either plan your trip to go here, or once you need a facility like this, you have that information at your fingertips through the digital guide. Next is the, and again, this thing is in my way. There we go, the marinas. Thank you, get that out of there. The marinas are available up and down the river. I'm going to click on this one right up here next to the layers, and it is going to be Manhattan Harbor. Again, you have a river level photograph, so as you go by there, you know that that's the proper place. You get a description of the facility, and you get its location and the amenities. As we move on down, we have caution areas. Now, these can be a variety of things, but right here, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, I've identified one in the Cincinnati area that's a caution area. That's right by Anderson Ferry. We have, for those of you not in the area, we do have a ferry that goes across the river right here, and it's running most of the time. I don't think it's running today because of the cold, but it does run most of the time. So we've identified that as a caution area. We also have emergency service facilities identified. This one I had to go down to Petersburg, Kentucky to identify, putting these areas close to the river, so that if for some reason you have to actually get to a facility, this will let you know where it is, gives you the contact information again and its actual exact location. Moving on to the commercial marine highway. This is again something that's incredibly unique to the digital guide. This is the area along the Ohio River where you're going to find the location of the barges where they travel most up and down the Ohio River. Now, this is not a maritime law, this is not enforceable, but this gives you an idea of where they are on the river. So if you're going to be out there, if you're going to anchor off, or if you're going to be plying the river, this gives you an idea of the most common place where you're going to find commercial traffic. If you notice up here, just off the layers tab, you'll see where the commercial traffic tend to go closer to the Ohio side than they do over to the Kentucky side. So if you're going to recreate or lay off in this area, you're certainly going to want to do it more toward the Kentucky side than the Ohio side. This is the type of information that this layer was designed to provide people. And we have ground truth this to a certain extent through looking at aerial photographs. And you can see here, there's a barge here on the Ohio River right outside of Paul Brown Stadium, and it's smack dab in the Marine Highway area. Also, there's a barge down here by the railroad bridge, and it's coming upstream, and it is in the area. So the area we've drawn here is very, very accurate, and but you cannot rely on it completely because the towboats can go everywhere and anywhere. It just gives you an idea of where that marine highway is. Let's look at the commercial marine activity zones. These are yellow. I hope you can see them, but these are mostly loading facilities, fleeting areas, industrial sites, loading and unloading areas. These are areas where there can be some unique traffic patterns by commercial vessels all along this area, especially in the lower part of Cincinnati. There are very many areas like this, so we have those identified. We also identified an area of high traffic or high activity. Here on the Licking River, you have both commercial and recreational traffic coming out and joining the Ohio River. You have a launch ramp. The public launch ramp is right here on the Cincinnati shore right there. We have tour boats, excursion boats, the B&B river boats right here. And this is also a favorite area of people during the summertime to come up and just cruise through downtown Cincinnati because it is very beautiful. And we have a lot of traffic there. So we have identified that as a high activity zone. Next up, the port facilities. Again, these mirror a lot of the commercial marine activity zones. These are the loading facilities, fleeting areas, industrial sites, industrial marinas, what have you. Gives you an idea, again, when you're planning, what sort of activities are going to be going on as you're moving up or down the river. Real-time AIS, the automated identification system. Towboats. This lets you know in real time where towboats are on the Ohio River. If you look down here, just off the layers tab, this yellow dot right here, that is a towboat that is not moving at present, okay? That one is laid off. but this one right here is in fact moving. So let's click on that, and we're going to bring up who that craft is. Now, this information is available to anyone, and it is contained in the digital guide. So this is the Mary Artie Brannan towboat heading downstream at 5.6 knots. A knot is slightly faster than a mile per hour. And its compass heading is 289, so it's actually heading in a north-northwest direction, as you can see right there. Now, how can you use this sort of information? Well, this area is the Coney Island area in Cincinnati, and we also have Riverbend Concert Venue right there as well. In the summertime, a lot of boats will gather out here in the river to listen to concerts. So if you put on the Marine Highway area and you put on the AIS information, this now shows you that you may not want to lay off in this area until such time as the Mary Artie passes that area. It's only a mile between where she is and the Riverbend is, and at 5.6 knots, that'll take her about 9 minutes to get there. So you can see how valuable this information is when you're plying the river in either a motorized vessel, a personal watercraft, or a paddle vessel, as far as crossing in front of or even behind a commercial boat like this. We also have, you can check the river mile markers. This will tell you where you launched, how far you've gone on the Ohio River, and how far it's going to be till you get out. So these are also, you can use this information to tell emergency services where you are. Your river mile 0.469. The river miles on the Ohio River start at 0 in Pittsburgh, and they end at 981 down in Cairo, Illinois, where the Ohio River meets with the mighty Mississippi. The last tab I'm going to talk about, Lisa, so you don't jump me, is the wind and speed direction. Now, why is this important on the Ohio River? I mean, come on, it's a big river. Well, this is information that comes from airports, like we have Lunken Airport right here. What we can do is bring up that wind direction information. So it's coming from the compass heading of 30 degrees, and it's at 16 miles an hour. So this is coming from the north-northeast, and it's blowing south-southwest. That means if you're on this stretch of river right here, you're going to experience quite a bit of chop on the water right there. And if you want to lay off, this may not be the best area to do it. You may want to come down here where you're going to have a crosswind, and it'll be a lot easier to lay off, and it'll be a lot calmer. Again, you go down this area, it's going to be choppy. As you go over this area, it's not going to be quite so. So this is some of the safety information contained in the Ohio River Recreational Trail digital guide. It is a tremendous, tremendous tool. I hope you give it a chance, take a look at it. There's the URL for it. There's all the information we talked about today. Thank you so very much.
Excellent, Jerry. Thank you so much. It truly is an impressive resource of information. And you went through that very quickly for us, so we do appreciate it. And I want to acknowledge that it's 1:15, so we are over time. So any attendees who need to leave, feel free to leave, because Orba will be sending a follow-up email that has all the contact information for all of our presenters. So if you need to leave, feel free. However, if you have time to stick around, I believe our speakers are able to handle a couple of questions, and we'll take those through the chat. So I would ask the speakers at this time, enable your camera and your microphone, the 4 speakers, please. I think I see everybody. Excellent. All right, so what I'll do is I'll move to the chat, and of course we won't get to all of the questions, but I saw one earlier. Is there a location that lists all accidents on the Ohio River broken down by commercial and recreational? So speakers, who might be able to address that question?
So unless somebody else knows of a source otherwise, there is not a comprehensive guide or collection of where accidents are and broken down into classification that I know of. And I say that because one of our jobs in the Coast Guard is to conduct marine casualty investigations. So it's not documented by pool. We document everything through a system that's called MISLE, M-I-S-L-E, Marine Information. Yeah, I forget the rest of the acronym. want to say it's like security, law enforcement, something like that. Uh, we've had that question. I've heard that once or twice since I've been here, and we really just don't have a good way to track that. I will say that we for every accident or casualty that we investigate as Coast Guard, we will put in Latin long mile marker into the system, but there's no way for me to pull any data over time for location that I'm aware of, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Good question and fair response. Absolutely. I see for Nadina, do you have a paddlecraft safety counterpart at MSU Paducah?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can find it. I put my email address out there if that person wants to contact me there. If not, we can certainly arrange to have someone travel to do a presentation if they would like. That might, or do a webinar thing like this if they would like.
I see one more question, and we'll make this our final question only because I know everybody has a busy schedule and we have things to get to. Let's see, what agency takes reports of hazards to navigation?
That would be the United States Coast Guard. United States Coast Guard in conjunction with Army Corps of Engineers. So it depends on where the hazard to navigation is. I will say that if you see a hazard or if you see aids to navigation that is not where it's supposed to be, or if it's not lit and it's supposed to be, or whatever the case is, please report it to Coast Guard Sector Command Center in Louisville as listed below, and we will get one of our 5 buoy tenders. Actually, we only really have one that comes through our area to fix it as soon as possible.
Excellent. Very good. Well, I think this was a very productive discussion. We heard a lot of fabulous content. We were very lucky to have all of these resources together. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, we really do hope to build this community of people who are passionate about the Ohio River. And each month we'll handle a different topic, and we'll bring all of the people together who share some passion for the Ohio River. And this was an excellent start. So I thank everybody for attending. I thank all of our speakers for their time and information. And I want to just thank everyone, and hopefully we'll see everybody again March or whatever topic interests you in 2021. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Have a great day. Be safe.
Thank you. And for those who are still on, this is Heather Mayfield with FOR. As Lisa had mentioned earlier, you'll be receiving a follow-up email from ORBA, and that email will share the contact information from our speakers today. And we also try to keep track of the links that were shared, so we will reshare the links that were shared in the chat in that email as well as any information on upcoming topics. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. All right, Heather, Adam, should I?
Thank you for attending, and I hope you can enjoy the next webinar on Ohio River Future Forecast, a discussion from university students.